So this is a really small locomotive. Thanks for joining me again for another one of these review videos. What we've got here is a narrow gauge 040 steam locomotive in a kind of American style. I think this is made by Juef, but it didn't come with a box, and it's probably a freelance model as well. I'm not sure which railway NSS and C company is. I think that's probably just made up. But let's check out this tiny locomotive and see what it's all about. So starting at the front of this locomotive, it actually does look as though it maybe has lighting here because this is a clear piece of plastic on this little light up here. It'd be quite incredible if it does. There's a little bit of detail here on the front boiler. It's an interesting shape of boiler, and it's got this round front door here with some brackets on it. It's a little bit dirty on this one. And it even has some rivet detail around the edges, so it's quite a nice moulding at the front. We've got this very simple coupling here, which is just a little stud on this bar and no buffers at all. So looking down the side of this locomotive, the printing here is not too bad. It's a little bit off in places, and it's certainly miles away from these pipes that are coming down here, which have been moulded into the main piece of plastic. But up top, we've got a really characterful little chimney here. We've got this bell added on, which I think is actually an extra part which has been painted in gold. There's this part here, which is a little screw which is holding this model together. And then we have these two domes here as well. Looking at the cab, we've got some nice rivet detail, and we have the number 5 printed on here. Again, not too great, but it's not too bad. It's quite eye-catching though. Nice rivet detail along the bottom and some handrails moulded in here. Obviously, there's no glazing on this one, and you can see straight inside that there is a motor there. And there's no real way of getting away from it on such a small model. Looking at the back of the cab, we've got some little tools moulded in here, which is quite cool. More rivet detail and a couple of other bits and pieces moulded in here. The paintwork isn't too good here on the back, and we have another simple coupling and a couple of steps as well. Up on the cab roof, not a lot of detail and an ugly moulding mark as well, which runs the whole length of this locomotive. Just this little hatch up here and the little gutters on each side on the front and the back of the cab. The mechanics of this are really quite simple. We've got these pistons here with the connecting rod here, which is a combination of plastic and metal, and these little tiny wheels which are plastic inserts with metal surrounds, and then the rest of the chassis is pretty basic as well. So I think we should maybe undo this screw here, and we'll take this apart and we'll see what the mechanism's like. So it was just one screw that was holding this together, and then it just pulled apart. And here we have the mechanism. It's quite neat actually. The motor's back here, and we saw that inside the cab, and we even have a little tiny bulb at the front here. So we do actually have some lighting, although this one does look as though it's maybe just broken the cable a little bit. There's even an additional weight as well here to help this stay on the track. And here you can see the contacts from the wheels at the front of the locomotive. So I think we should maybe give this a go and see what it's like. Okay, it's back together and I've got it on the test track. Let's give it some power and see what happens. Okay, nothing happened there. I guess it's just a little bit dirty, so I'm going to take it apart and see if we can clean this up. Okay, I've got this thing apart now. This part here is made of metal and it's got the drive along here from the motor. Most of the other parts are made of plastic. This is the main chassis part here, and you can see that it is actually quite dirty underneath. So I'm going to give this a bit of a clean up and then we'll see if we can get this running okay. Okay, here's where we're at. We've given everything a clean now. I'm just going to put some power onto the motor itself and see if it's running okay. Okay, that's good news. The motor's running fine. So all I'm going to do now is put this back together, give it a little bit of oil, and then fingers crossed. And I've come to the conclusion that this is just an absolute pile of garbage. What seems to be happening here is that the motor's running fine, but the wheels seem to be spinning on their axles, and then the valve gear just jams up and then the locomotive stops. It doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason about when this happens. I can free them up and get it running fine, and then once it stops and then starts again, it just jams up again. So I feel as though this locomotive needs quite an extensive overhaul, and I think the reason that it was cheaply made to begin with is the cause of the problem. Because if it isn't the wheels spinning, it's the gears spinning, and if it isn't that, then the valve gear's getting jammed up, and if it isn't that, then the pistons are getting jammed up, So it's just really badly engineered. Anyway, I'm going to put this on the scales so we can see how much it weighs. So this locomotive comes in at 49 grams. So some closing thoughts on this locomotive. I think it's from the Egger-Bahn range, and as such it would be made by GF in France, and I think it has all the hallmarks of being just a crappy design. I gave it my best shot to get this running, but I think it's just had its day. It may well have been used quite a lot in the past, and therefore the wheels are getting a bit worn out, and that's causing the problems that we're seeing with it getting jammed up. And I think I'm probably safe in saying it is actually the fault with the manufacturing of this model that's causing these problems, because I actually have two of these and they're both as terrible as each other. So it's not just this specific one that we've been looking at today that's the problem. So my recommendation to you about these models is if you're considering getting these, I would completely not do that, because I think these are absolutely rubbish. There's so much other choice that you could make that would be so much better than these models. However, if you fancy a bit of a challenge and you want to give these a go, then good luck to you, because this is Fox Me on this video. So let me know what you thought about my analysis of this model and my tinkering around with it trying to get it to work in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel. I'll put one of these on the turntable so you can see all the way around. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. See ya.